Welcome to the part 2 of incident management. I hope you already watched the first part and we are going to continue with part 2. And I hope you understood all the previous discussions we had on the introduction. And we are going to go further here, discussing basically the complete incident management flow. So in the agenda, we had already discussed the introduction to what is incident management. We also went through the definitions and understanding key terms. It's very important to understand all of them to get to the part 2. So I would advise if you had not seen the part 1, please do so. We also understood what are the different roles and responsibilities that are required for running a successful incident management operation. And we also touched upon what are the inputs and outputs that are required for a proper incident management process. So in this second part, we are going to talk about the incident management flow and process in detail. We are going to touch upon the major incident management flow, though it requires a completely different video. We will touch upon it very briefly. And finally, we'll talk about what are the key takeaways and conclusions that we have drawn from the entire course. So let's go ahead. Very briefly, let us look at the process. And I'm showing it here as a diagram. I would advise you to pause and have a look at the entire process. What you see on top is actually the different inputs that are coming for the incident management. So you have events, you have web interface, you have phone calls, you have email, and you have input from technical staff. So these are all the different ways in which an incident can happen. So these are the key inputs for us. And what happens is once you get the input, the person in the front, the warrior, the incident service desk will look at the incident and he'll try to identify it. They will log the incident. They will then categorize the incident and then decide what to do with it. So if it's a service request, then you don't really need to go through the incident management process. It goes into something called as a request fulfillment process, and that's another topic. So then you go into the incident prioritization, and there'll be some kind of a documentation on what are the guidelines for the priority. How do you set a priority? So this particular flow shows the entire thing. So what I would suggest is that pause your video and have a look at it. I hope you had enough time to look at this whole process flow, and we are going to discuss in detail what are the different steps. So let's go ahead and start looking at them. The first step is intent identification, and let's look at what exactly this means. Here, what happens is all the key components should be monitored so that failures or potential failures can be detected early, and the incident management process can start. Incidents can be identified by different ways, like we already talked in the earlier diagram. It's by event management, which is a separate topic. It can happen a web interface, provided to the user, some kind of a phone call. Hey, you know what, my computer is on fire, so that's an incident. Or an email that comes through saying that something is not working. And sometimes what happens, the technical staff makes an observation and they try to want to get the incident management team start working on that. So these are the different ways in which the incidents are identified. So let's move on to the next one. Now the incident has already been identified, and now what needs to be done is once any kind of an incident comes, we have to log it. Logging is nothing but basically making a note of it somewhere electronically. So all incidents must be fully logged and date time stamped. So you should know exactly when you have recorded that. So that's what it means. Regardless, however it has been raised. When it has come from an email or it has come from a phone call or whatever we have discussed, any kind of a thing has to be logged in. And this is done by the service desk. So what happens here is that all kinds of information as far as the incident is concerned must be completely documented. So what happens is at any point of time, if you want to go and refer back and say how did this incident actually come into our system, we should know how it is. So that way there is a very clear understanding of the source of the incident. So typically what happens is that there will be something called as a incident logging checklist. We can look at that at some other time, but there will be a set of things that you need to capture in that. Okay, who is the person recording the specific call? Who is the person who has called? Which group are they calling from? Who is the customer? Or any such kind of information. So there are specific things that you have and you need to capture all that. And that typically there in what is called as an incident login checklist. It's nothing but a bunch of fields that you have to capture. Date and time, when it has come and stuff like that. So once the incident is logged, what the service desk person does is he actually categorizes the incident. So categorizing is a very interesting thing. It's a specialty by itself. You need to understand, okay, what exactly is the type of incident that I got. I need to understand that, and then I have to categorize it. So, for example, here is something, an application service incident. So the category is an application. It's some kind of a CRM system. CRM is nothing but customer relationship management. There is a subcategory that you have. What is it? That there is a data entry error. So what happened is that somebody, a customer, he went in and he created a record. And in the record, what he did is he put in some wrong information. And unfortunately, that person doesn't have the rights to go and modify it. So he already knows that he has made a mistake in the entry, data entry. So he is calling up the service desk and telling them, hey boss, you know what? I have a problem. Please correct this because I made a mistake. Okay. And because of that error, whatever he has done, he is not able to save the record. So what happens because of this? This is an incident, you're not able to save something properly. So now we are able to categorize this thing properly, right? You're able to tell that, okay, this is something that needs the help of the CRM support team, somebody who's specialized in that. So we can very specifically go to the team and talk to them and say that, okay, please help me. So it becomes faster how to get something resolved. So this is what is called as an incident categorization. Many times what happens is there is a big confusion between a service request and a incident. So lots of times, people incorrectly log them as incident. Okay, so the person who is actually interacting with the user, whoever is calling or whatever it is, needs to understand the difference between a service request and a specific incident. So, for example, somebody says that I am not able to change my password. Okay. Or if I say that I need somebody to reset my password, it's not an incident. It is actually a service request, because for whatever reason, you might not have changed the password in the last 3 months. And what happened is because of that, automatically the password got, it's not allowing you to log in. It's actually not a incident. It is more of a service request. So that is something that the service desk will understand when they're getting a call or whatever it is that something is not working. They'll say, hey, this is not an incident, this is service request. So you need to contact this person, or it is not part of the incident management process, it is something else, and move on to the next stage. Next is incident prioritization. This is very important. So what type of an incident is it? Is it something that is very critical? Is it a P1? That is priority one, it's highest priority. Like, hey, this has to be fixed, otherwise something is going to go terribly wrong. So the service desk, who is getting the incident service desk will get this information. They will immediately have to prioritize the incident. And depending upon what type of incident it is, they will allocate a priority to it. A very high priority for something that is very important, and a low priority for something that is not. Many times what happens is they have to take the help of an SLA. So I have to respond within certain time, or I have to fix within certain time. So all those things basically are going to help in deciding what's going to be the incident prioritization. It is also very important to remember that during the entire incident management process flow, priorities can change. So initially it might have been a very low priority item, but because it was not addressed during certain time, it suddenly moves the priority. It will change from a low priority similarly to a very high priority. So this is not something that is fixed always, it can change. It's very dynamic. An important thing that we also need to note is that there is a separate procedure, like we talked about, what is called as a major incident. So we'll keep that thing separately and we'll talk about it later. It's a very brief discussion on that, so let's not talk about it here. But the idea is that if this is something that is having a very severe impact, then it has to have a different way of handling it. So there'll be key stakeholders who are going to get involved, and it takes a very fast track. So we'll talk about it later. Functional escalation to L2 and L3. So what happens is many times the service desk is not able to resolve the incident, okay, depending upon the information that they have, etc. So what happens is this has to immediately be escalated. So they should not take too much time in starting to think about how to actually try to solve the issue. They don't have to worry about that at all. Instead, they should just go and escalate it immediately so that the functional persons will actually take care of that. So what happens is now once it goes to that escalation or whatever it is, the functional escalation, these support groups will basically help out with how to handle this particular incident. So different groups get involved. They will investigate what is the incident. They will try to diagnose what is going wrong, and they will completely document all the information. They will also look for some kind of a historical evidence of something similar has happened and so forth. And depending upon their findings, many things can happen. So if they find that there is no solution immediately available, and there is some basic requirement for making a change, some approach of how this particular incident can be resolved, they will raise what is called as a RFC. It's a request for change. And there is a separate team to manage that, which is called as the change management process, which is another different video. So the support groups will also identify involvement of some suppliers. So what happens is, like I talked in part one many times, you are not in control of giving a solution. You are dependent upon a third party. Like, for example, an ERP system which is run by Oracle or by SAP or by Microsoft Dynamics. If they have not fixed the problem, obviously you cannot give a solution. So you are dependent upon somebody else. So this group is someone who is actually going to decide, okay, whether other parties need to be involved or what exactly we need to respond back to the customer. So this is all part of the investigation and diagnosis. During the process, many times it is found that you're able to or unable to find a workaround or a fix. So if the incident support group that we talked about, is unable to identify a workaround or a permanent fix, which is basically an SLA time. So, for example, we have signed an SLA with the customer saying that I will resolve this in 4 hours, and it is not possible. Then what happens is, problem management team, the separate team for that, they should get involved and they should try to find out what is the root cause. Why has this thing happened? So that is part of what we need to do. At this point of time, they will decide that, hey, you know what, this cannot be fixed by traditional methods. We need a separate mechanism to do this. So this root cause is telling us that it needs a complete rewrite of this code or whatever it is. So that is how you are going to decide, or the support group is going to decide on that. Next, we talk about resolution and recovery. So what happens is, here when you find a solution, you find a resolution, then this has to be applied and tested. So you should give some time for testing, so that what happens is that you are sure that this is going to work. Whatever is the action taken or who does them, every time the incident record must be updated continuously, whatever happens, so that you are completely having a history of what has taken place. So this resolving group, should pass the incident back to the service desk for closure. So this is a recovery, resolution and recovery. That means some kind of a solution has been found and you are able to finally close the incident. Suppose you are not able to, and the resolution and recovery steps are taking too long, and people are getting frustrated. Then you need to talk to the customer and tell them what exactly is the problem. So the service desk person is not the real qualified person, right? So it must be the incident manager, or maybe in some case what happens is, it may go even beyond that. Maybe the vice president of your company needs to talk to their vice president and tell them that, hey, you know what, this is actually what's happening, and it's creating problems and we need more time. So there's some kind of a hierarchical escalation that happens to make sure that if you are stuck somewhere for whatever reason, when you are trying to resolve an incident, you ensure and make sure all the proper people are brought into the picture and they also become accountable. So once some kind of a resolution is made, or let's assume that they figure out that this is not something that can be completed within 4 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, or whatever it is, you still need to close the incident. and say that, hey, you know what? This is moved into a different category entirely. You need to rewrite some code, so that requires some additional time. It's a small project by itself. So at this point of time, you still would like to close the incident. It's not resolved. That's okay. That's fine. But it has to be closed. Or sometimes it is resolved and you want it to be closed. So if the incident solved from the user's perspective, we can actually close the incident. If the user is not confirmed with agreed timelines, we could still proceed to close the incident. But what happens is you will open a separate channel and we'll tell them that, okay, we will solve this thing in a different manner entirely. So what happens is here, the user has not accepted the resolution. That is, he says, sorry, you have not solved the incident. Then you have to take a decision whether you want to reopen that incident. Basically, what we say here is reopening the ticket. And then we tell them that, okay, we are reopening the ticket, but the timelines are going to be different. Okay, so some new rules will be established as far as the ticket is concerned, and they will be documented. And now that new ticket will follow the same incident management flow. Workaround chance of reoccurring a P1 call. P1 is a priority one call. So let's talk about this. So if the incident is resolved by providing a workaround, we already talked about a workaround, which is not a permanent fix, then what happens is the support staff, service desk will identify the incident may occur again, and what will happen is they'll have to update the record. And they will have to pass this information to the problem management team. This will create a problem management ticket. This is not a incident management ticket. This is a problem management ticket where a permanent fix will be found. If the incident is a P1 call, then what happens is it is also passed on to the problem management for a root cause analysis. That means you're not able to find a solution very easily. So it requires a very deep dive into the system to find out where exactly the problem is. So there are different ways to find out what is the root cause analysis. They apply those mechanisms and they try to find what it is. So this is more of a proactive measure. Finally, this service desk, the incident service desk, to check the incident is fully resolved, the users are satisfied, and the user is agreed to close the ticket. Okay, so that is when the incident is closed. So at that point of time, the service desk will make sure that the entire incident closure service checklist is followed. So, hey, who accepted the closure of the ticket. So all those things are going to be noted down. This completes the flow of the incident management. So let's go over another important topic that we are going to touch upon very briefly, which is the major incident management. So here is the flow for the major incident management process. Like you have seen the major incident or the incident management process flow earlier, why don't you pause for a while and actually look at this flow so that you try to understand what's going on. One of the key things here is creating what is called as a bridge call, and this bridge call is normally initiated by the incident manager. And what they are going to do is bring in sometimes the customer and the higher ups to tell them the importance of the incident and why it needs to be handled in a different way. So just pause for a while and have a look at it. I hope you had a chance to look at it in detail. So let's talk about it now. So here what is happening is there is a functional escalation to level 3. So level 1, level 2, level 3. So level 3 is on a higher order. So as a business, the impact of the incident is very high. So the business is going to suffer. Incident should be directly assigned to a third level for quick resolution. So it is not going to be handled by the lower level people. Immediately it's going to go to the higher authorities who will basically make a decision as to how to get this thing resolved quickly. So first thing that they're going to figure out is like how fast can we get the business up and running. And one of the things that we talked about is what is called as a workaround. Is there a way to get the workaround in place? So if you are able to get the workaround in place, then that's something that can buy us some time. And what will happen is that will have to be immediately implemented. If there is a permanent fix, obviously it's going to take some time to get to it, how it is going to be done, the permanent fix, and that will have to be done through a root cause analysis. So that's a separate process by itself, and it is part of the problem management process. So what we are talking here is going to either a workaround or a permanent fix. Like I mentioned earlier, this is something that needs to be taken up as a separate topic. It requires a separate video on its own. So we are just touching upon this very briefly. And now that we've talked about what is a major incident management, let us go to the final conclusion. So now we are going to talk about the conclusion and what are the key takeaways. So what we have learned so far, what are the key takeaways? So one of the first thing is that incident management has to ensure that the operations are up and running as quickly as possible, and there should not be any business impact, or there should be a minimal business impact, or there should be no service disruptions. So that is the first important thing that needs to happen in an incident management process. There is a structured lifestyle or a life cycle that needs to happen. You need to log in everything, you have to categorize everything, you need to prioritize, you have to assign it to the right teams, you should get a resolution, and once you have the resolution, then it has to be closed. So these are things that need to happen, and they will happen in this order. And this is basically to make sure that there is a consistency, transparency, and you can measure it later. It's very important that a proper categorization and prioritization is done. And this is important because what will happen is you will be able to involve the right type of teams so that your SLAs are never breached. And we talked about what is an SLA, etc. earlier, nothing but a contract. So that's very important. And throughout the whole process, make sure that there is proper communication, both with the users, the customer, with the internal teams. And the person who is going to hold all these things together is the frontline person. Who is that? The incident manager. So he is the key person who will take care of all these things are functioning properly and supported very ably by the service desk operator, who is the ultimate person who is going to record and maintain all these things. But ultimately, it is the incident manager who is responsible. What happens is during the entire process of the takeaways, it is important to know the process details, is there a way that you can improve it, etc., whatever. So it's very important to know who, when, how has this information been captured by, how it has been stored. So this will help you to make any further analysis, and this helps in continual improvement of your process. You should also know how to link incident management to problem and change management with SLAs, etc., and other things. So you should make sure that you understand what is the reason why an incident is happening, and that way what happens next time you can reduce the reoccurrence of it or able to fix things more faster. The way you capture things helps in metrics, that is, how fast were you able to respond to an incident, how fast were you able to resolve an incident, how many were you are becoming, or going to problem management, or how many times did, there was a requirement for a change, that change management had to be involved. So you will get all these kinds of different metrics which helps in understanding your entire organization's shortfalls, or or what you are doing right, both ways. So these are some of the key takeaways that we have for incident management. And in conclusion, so you should not think about incident management as just a help desk function. It is more of a strategic capability. It supports business continuity, and the most important thing is how you are delivering a good service quality. This process should be repeatable, it should be measurable and transparent, so that there is no kind of finger pointing, oh, you did this wrong, I did this wrong, and stuff like that. And you should also make sure that you're continuously reviewing your processes and ensuring that it is being refined and becoming better over a period of time. Trying to invest your dollars into things like automation in your database, in your knowledge databases, and alerting mechanisms. These kind of things are now helping incident management becoming more proactive and much better. So this concludes our presentation on incident management process. Make sure that you have already looked at part 1, which I am sure you have done, and I'll be very happy to hear your comments. Thank you. This is Vijay Chanda from Scrum Byte. Have a good day.